Welcome back down the woods. And once again, I apologize for last week. It just wasn't happening. So to make up for that, we're going to do two this week. First, we're going to do the one today, and then tomorrow we are going to do the Mahayana version of the Buddha's passing. Right? So much of the rest of the Buddhist world celebrates them all, the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing it at the same time. That's Vesak, which is coming up a few months from now. The Mahayana side kind of took a little different approach and went, his birth is this time, his passing is this time, his enlightenment is this time. Right? So we are at his passing. So we're going to be celebrating that and demonstrating gratitude to the Buddha for his teachings. And if I can swing it, we're going to have us some flower cakes. Like flower as in like the plant, with like the pretty plant. Don't know if I'll be able to swing it, but I'm going to try. So do try and be here for that. But today, we're going to be talking maybe not too long, about snow. Why? Because this is El Paso. You wouldn't expect there to be snow, but twice in the last week, two times, it has snowed. It is beautiful. It's really gorgeous. So I thought, okay, well, let's find us. Let's talk. Let's look at the Buddha and what happened to him when it was snowing. And I found one that I think is going to really resonate well with those who have been out to the field in, say, January or February, because it makes a lot of sense, right? And we're still going to get something out of it. Bear with me. So this is the Hataka Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 335. You can find this on Access to Insight, or I'm not sure if this is one of the ones that's up on Dharma Talks when Thanissaro Bhikkhu went over and basically put all his stuff up there, or somebody acting on his behalf did. But anyway, on one occasion, the Blessed One was staying near Alavi on a spread of leaves by a cattle track in a Simsapa forest. Then Hataka of Alavi, out roaming and rambling for exercise, saw the Blessed One sitting on a spread of leaves by the cattle track in the Simsapa forest. On seeing him, he went to him, and on arrival, having bowed down to him, sat to one side. He gave the Oji salute. As he was sitting there, he said to the Blessed One, "Lord, I hope the Blessed One has slept in ease." And the Buddha says, "Yes, young man, I have slept in ease. Of those in the world who sleep in ease, I am one." I love that phrasing. It's so awesome. And Hataka continues, "But cold, Lord, is the winter night. The between the eights, generally a time in February-ish when it's super cold, typically regarded as the coldest period of the year. It's between the eighth night of, I'm probably going to get this wrong, the waxing and waning periods of the moon, not the full moon, not the new moon, but the kind of like the middle period, that time in February, that's when it's coldest. And we're kind of right in there right now. So we are in the middle of between the eights. But cold, Lord, is a winter night. The between the eights is a time of snowfall. Hard is the ground trampled by cattle hoofs. Thin is the spread of leaves. Sparse are the leaves in the trees. Thin are your ochre robes. And cold blows the Varamba wind. Yet still the Blessed One says, "Yes, young man, I have slept in ease. Of those in the world who sleep in ease, I am one." And here we see the Buddha explaining why he sleeps in ease, right? And we've talked about this a little bit before. We've talked about this in terms of the Eightfold Noble Path and right conduct and all that fun jazz, and how that right action leads you to sleep properly, right? It gives you that kind of state where you're good enough that you don't worry about what you've done or what's going on around you. So, in that case, young man, I will ask you a question in return. Answer as you see fit. Now, what do you think? Suppose a householder or householder's son has a house with a gabled roof, plastered inside and out, draft-free, with close-fitting door and windows shut against the wind. Inside he has a throne-like bed spread with a long fleece coverlet, a white wool coverlet, an embroidered coverlet, a rug of Kadali deer hide, with a canopy above and red cushions on either side. And there a lamp would be burning, and his 4 wives with their many charms would be attending to him. Would he sleep in ease or not? How does this strike you? Yes, Lord, he would sleep in ease. Of those in the world who sleep in ease, he would be one. But what do you think, young man? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son any bodily fevers or fevers of the mind born of passion, so that, burned with those passion-born fevers, he would sleep miserably? Yes, Lord. As for those passion-born fevers, burned with which the householder or householder's son would sleep miserably, that passion has been abandoned by the Tathagata, its root destroyed, made like a palmyra stump, deprived of the conditions of development, not destined for future arising. Therefore he sleeps in ease. Now what do you think, young man? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son any bodily fevers or fevers of mind born of aversion? You see where we're going with this? Yeah, 3 poisons, yep. So that, burned with those aversion-born fevers, he would sleep miserably. Yes, Lord. As for those aversion-born fevers, burned with which the householder or householder's son would sleep miserably, that aversion has been abandoned by the Tathagata, its root destroyed, made like a palmyra stump, deprived of the conditions of development, not destined for future arising. Therefore he sleeps in ease. Now what do you think, young man? Might there arise in that householder or householder's son any bodily fevers or fevers of mind born of delusion, so that, burned with those delusion-born fevers, he would sleep miserably? Yes, Lord. As for those delusion-born fevers, burned with which the householder or householder's son would sleep miserably, that delusion has been abandoned by the Tathagata, its root destroyed, made like a palmyra stump, deprived of the conditions of development, not destined for future arising. Therefore he sleeps in ease. Sorry about that, we do have traffic. Always he sleeps in ease. The Brahman totally unbound, who doesn't adhere to sensual pleasures, who's without acquisitions and cooled. Having cut all ties and subdued fear in the heart, calmed, he sleeps in ease, having reached the peace of awareness. So what we see here is really threefold, right? And these are the 3 points that I wanted to kind of bring up as we're going about this talk. The first is, obviously we have very strong connections to sleeping in the field, because that's exactly what the Buddha is doing, right? Many of you have woken up, you've been out on a field training operation or a field exercise or a field problem in the winter, and you've woken up and your tent is covered in snow, or your bivy sack is covered in like very, very fine misty ice, right? That stuff that accumulates after you've been sleeping on the field, and it just kind of meh. Right? Or your sleeping bag is so frozen solid that it literally crinkles every time you move. Right? You've been there. You know how that goes. So do I, right? I've been out there. I remember Danger Focus, January to February. Good times, right? So what we have here is the Buddha is sleeping out there in the field, and he's got this, this local who comes up to him and says, "Hey, that can't be comfortable, right? You're sleeping in the cattle tracks. Think Humvee tracks, right? So you go through in the dirt. There's maybe a little bit of water in the dirt during the daytime, and so it gets a little muddy, and Humvees go through it. LMTVs go through it. Builds a nice little track, right? At night it freezes. And that's where the Buddha is sleeping, right? In the cattle track that essentially does exactly that same thing, right? And he's sleeping on a spread of leaves, a thin spread of leaves. It sounds a lot like our baby sex. Yeah. And so this guy is out there, and he's like, you're out there in your baby sack and your sleep sack, your sleep system, and you're out there in these Humvee tracks. There's no way that's comfortable. Did you sleep well? And the Buddha's like, yeah, I did. And he's like, what? yeah, it's so the Buddha has to explain to him exactly where he's coming from, right? And that brings him into the three poisons, right? So he's not bound by the three poisons, right? He's not bound by the passions that we as normal people usually are, right? He's not bound by the aversion. And there are a lot of Dharma boots and a lot of soldiers and airmen and Marines and sailors who, when they go out to the field, that it's kind of miserable and they don't want to do it and they have aversion for it. That happens, right? Because the field is pretty miserable. Sleeping out in the field can be a very terrible time. So he's just sitting here explaining how when one doesn't have that kind of passion, when one doesn't have that aversion, when one doesn't have that kind of delusion, that ignorance, when one knows what's going on and one is not averse to it, nor is one passionate for it, when one has that equanimity, right, that I've stressed so often on so many occasions. When you have that equanimity, you can sleep anywhere and it's comfortable, right? And okay, granted, yeah, in the military we do a lot of that, right? You've seen the pictures. You all know somebody who has managed to sleep standing up or sleep in the well of a Humvee wheel or an LMTV wheel, or sleep on the hood of an LMTV, right? It happens, right? It's not comfortable by any stretch of the imagination. I can tell you from firsthand experience. But yeah, you can sleep like that. And the Buddha's out here doing that, and he's saying how you get to that stage where it becomes, where you can sleep at ease. Doing that is by not having that aversion, by not having that passion, by not getting riled up by, oh, I gotta go out to the field, I hate life. But by saying, yeah, I mean, we're going out to the field, it's a thing. Having that equanimity for it, right? Oh, we're staying at home, it's a thing. Oh, we're going up to the field, it's a thing. So having that equanimity, even in conditions where you're probably getting snowed on, like we did in El Paso, like we did here at Fort Bliss, even when you're getting snowed on, having that equanimity, keeping that equanimity, granted it's tough to do, believe me, it's tough. But building that equanimity and keeping on practicing towards that equanimity, that's a huge deal, and it can be so beneficial, so very beneficial, right? If nothing else, it helps you sleep at ease. And even more than that, it helps you to practice the path better, right? Because you're not stuck in the three poisons. And so that's what I kind of wanted to go through is, let's practice some equanimity, shall we? Let's do our best to practice equanimity. I'm going to leave it there. Dhamma Buddha Sutta.